What was your goal with the book? How come you wanted to put that out? You don't see a lot of grapplers putting out books.
That's true. Maybe more grapplers will start putting out books.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there you go.
We definitely noticed not a lot of pictures.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing holding back so many grapplers from.
Yeah, we need
What's that line? I'm one of the few guys who's actually written more books than he's read. That would be a couple of grapplers. They start
Yeah,
out.
I've always written stuff. I started because that was kind of my like main job before I was doing mostly jiu-jitsu, and even now I have like a couple clients that I still do. Like I did some ad copy for Choju, and I ghostwrite for some people, and that was kind of like how I was paying for jiu-jitsu, in the early days especially. And I had kind of my own blog as a portfolio of stuff. It's called The Grappler's Diary, so it's a newsletter on Substack, and then it's an Instagram page, and I do like little like posts every day about like how to get better at jiu-jitsu, or like sometimes it's like funny stuff, like what your favorite submission says about you, and it's like kind of jokes. And so I've been doing that for
The lists. A lot of lists.
The
Yes.
lists.
Always love
yes.
the lists.
Yeah. So I do a lot of lists and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, I should just the idea came to me like before I even started the Instagram, that it would be cool to do like a kind of daily stoic type format for jiu-jitsu. So like all the things that you might want to know about jiu-jitsu. And I wanted to make it easy to read because I know a lot of grapplers don't like to read. So it's really short. It's 151. I call them notes. They're just like, no note is more than 300 words. They're all really short, really easy to digest. You could read one every morning on the toilet or whatever you want to do. And that's kind of...
Yeah, I remember we were reading through it a little bit on the podcast, and one that stuck out to me was like you were talking about why you love jiu-jitsu, kind of like what you boiled it down to. I think just like training hard was like the thing that you love about training jiu-jitsu, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the ones that was in there.
Yeah, that was definitely one. I remember like I that was kind of inspired by like Keenan was one of my favorite grapplers when I first was coming up. Mm-hmm. And there was one thing, like one interview that he was talking about, like just like he loves jiu-jitsu because he loves just like the super hard training and how it forces you to be like super present. It forces you to challenge yourself and like kind of like to challenge yourself and to be like nice to yourself at the same time. Mm-hmm. So like that kind of, I thought kind of resonated. And I think that definitely that hard training is something that I really kind of enjoy about.
Yeah, that feeling, that like post-training clarity is just like the best feeling when you're just like full body exhaustion, but you kind of have the camaraderie of everybody there with you too. I feel like that just like sitting around on the mats after training is just such an underrated part of jiu-jitsu.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Like, what do the Brazilians call it? Like Resenha or something, where you just sit around and kind of chop it up afterwards. Definitely a great feeling. Do you have a favorite note in this book? Anything that stands out? Or just the collective?
I don't think I have a favorite. No, I kind of like, because it was not written in order, and so it's like it's a little chaotic, but like sometimes my brain's a little chaotic and not in order. And so like the only thing I think, like I even wrote one note about each belt, and then in post I was like, oh, I should probably put these all together. Like it was just written kind of in like spur of the moment, how I felt in that moment, and so I don't really have a single favorite or a single like least favorite.
For sure. Who overall do you think the book is for? Like, if you're a grappler out there, is it everybody? Should everybody have a copy of the Grappler's Diary, or did you have a target in mind whenever you kind of wrote it?
So when I first started jiu-jitsu, I used to Google everything. Like I was like, how do I recover from training? What's a sign I should take a day off? How do I get better faster? I'm a blue belt now. What is that? What do I focus on as a blue belt? And so I was always just Googling everything, and I was like, well, what if I could just put the lessons that I'm learning that no one, because a lot of the, no offense to the other people who have written about jiu-jitsu, but a lot of the content that's been written about jiu-jitsu online it's hard to read. It's like on sites that are full of ads. It's like, not easy to digest. It doesn't even really make sense. Some of it is out of date. And so I just wanted to make kind of a resource for somebody who is like, maybe just someone who's thoughtful about their jiu-jitsu and who wants to make the most out of their experience. So I think it's 151 notes on the jiu-jitsu experience. So it's like anyone who's just thoughtful about their experience is kind of the target audience.
Kind of intentional about like, getting better at jiu-jitsu, diving deep into the grappling world and everything. You had something you wanted to point out?
Oh
Joe?
yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, do you ever look back at one of these notes and just think, like, man, I was on some bullshit that day. I actually I do not agree with what I wrote there, and if I were to write this again, I would rewrite it.
Yes, but I think that like having like if you don't have that, like you're not growing. You know, you should be looking at like I even look at just articles that I've written. Even like my article that I've written for you guys, I revisit them and I'm like, oh my god, that was bad. You know, so
Yeah,
it's
pick
like,
it up a little bit.
I don't know. The ones you write for us are great.
Besides those, all of the other ones though. But like I try to like always just be a little bit like kind of self-critical, maybe not. I try to avoid doing it to a fault, but I try to be like kind of like critical of the way I used to think so that the way that I start thinking it hopefully continues to improve.
I feel like too that's like a natural process for anyone who either is like creative or is actually creating something and putting it out there, or even jiu-jitsu guys, you know? So like for a personal example, like I remember when I first started making videos, like you kind of think like, oh dude, I nailed it in this one. And sometimes you know a video is like, this is a little lackluster, whatever. But I was always kind of with the goal of like, I need to just be publishing and making stuff so that I can look back and be like, dude, I was terrible at that time. You know, it's like an important part of that process that maybe people overlook, where it's like, you have to be creating stuff if that's what you want to do and putting it out there so you can look back and be like, wow, I'm so much better. You know, I'm not super proud of this anymore, but I knew it was part of the process. Jiu-jitsu as well, you know, like I have the video from my first white belt competition and it's like every now and then I'll like go back and watch that and I'm like, dude, this is funny to watch. Like, because at the time I was like, I killed it, bro. I like, you know, I was the man. And then I'm like, wow, I was so bad, you know? And it's kind of like, feels like that's a natural part of jiu-jitsu as well, looking back and like being able to look back on your old matches and think like, oh wow, I really was really bad, but thank goodness I like kind of was bad at that time so I could be where I'm at now and now see it kind of through a different lens and everything. So definitely a natural part of that process.
I think like because I've been doing the lists on Instagram for like probably like about 2 years, like pretty much like 2 years almost to the day. And before I did 150 or 175 before I put I've done probably like 500 posts. I did probably 420 before I put the book out.
Wow.
So like there were luckily for people who purchased the book. Yeah, I did 420. But like anybody who purchases the book, like while it is maybe not like I wouldn't want to call it the Bible of jiu-jitsu, although some people on the internet have.
We'll call it that.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
The Grappler's Bible.
Grappler's
Bible. There we go. But like, it's kind of it's like a pretty polished version because it's like I was editing it after doing like 500 plus posts on Instagram writing about jiu-jitsu. So like you're getting kind of some polished thoughts about the experience. A lot of reps, which I think, and same with like videos or just training, like competition, whatever, like anything that you do, the more reps that you have, the better you get and the worse you think your old reps were.